Good afternoon, everyone. Today, interesting topic. I'm here joined with Álvaro de Maria and his girlfriend Julia, who's going to help translate Álvaro de Maria, who speaks Spanish. His English is good, but maybe not good enough to explain the topic of today, which requires a lot of eloquence. So, a few weeks ago, Álvaro invited me to be on stage to talk about the philosophy of Bitcoin, the book that he wrote, a fantastic book, which I highly recommend for all of you to read. There's an English translation, but there's also the original is in Spanish. And what I found that's better, that's louder. What I found quite special was just as he invited me to talk on stage with him, which was an honor. I had just tweeted something in Serbia, globally, but to my Serbian audience, because my Twitter account, I have a lot of followers who are non-Bitcoiners, who don't really understand Bitcoin. So there's a small minority who are very quite loud and angry, and they get kind of pissed off whenever I tweet anything about Bitcoin. There's probably a lot of bots as well and all that. So I decided to trigger them one day. And I don't know if you know about my history. I am Prince Filip of Serbia or Yugoslavia. I come from the Karađorđević dynasty, and that means that Karađorđe was my great-great-great-grandfather who started the first uprising against the Ottoman Empire. We were slaves under the Ottoman Empire for several hundred years, and Karađorđe was a farmer who later became a general who organized the first uprising against the Ottomans and liberated Serbia to form what is known as modern Serbia. So he's recognized as the father of modern Serbia. So my tweet went along the lines of this. Karađorđe, in today's world, would undoubtedly be a staunch Bitcoiner, Bitcoin only. He'd mine it, he'd acquire it, enlighten others, and diligently work on expanding the decentralization network of freedom. He would play his part in the uprising against the unjust current debt-based monetary system known as the fiat standard, a system that forces printed money onto its subjects, with a supply that is arbitrarily inflated effortlessly by centralized powers, therefore devaluing your hard work and purchasing power at zero cost. Whereas Bitcoin is rules without rulers, an inflation-resistant, absolutely scarce, immutable, censorship-resistant, decentralized, indestructible, portable, and divisible freedom protocol based on truth. Inflation and the debt-based fiat system is modern slavery. Karađorđe would see Bitcoin as the key to a peaceful liberation from a monetary oppression. Bitcoin is jebana. Now, jebana is slang for gunpowder and lead that makes up the bullets to fire the guns for the uprising. And Karađorđe was always saying, we need more jebana for the uprising. And this is where I find it interesting that we are now I'm now being invited to talk about the relationship between Bitcoin and gunpowder, which Álvaro de Maria eloquently wrote about it in his book. And now he's going to talk about it today.
Muchísimas gracias, Filip. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Es un honor para mí estar aquí.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. It is a pleasure for us to be here today.
En mi libro, en la filosofía de Bitcoin, tratamos de analizar no solo cómo Bitcoin separa el dinero del Estado, sino cómo principalmente separa la propiedad del Estado.
So, going a little back before getting into the gunpowder, Álvaro, in his book, he talks about how Bitcoin not only separates money from the state, but it separates property from the state.
Como sabemos, Bitcoin hace depender la propiedad, el control del activo, del conocimiento de unas palabras. Y en ese sentido hace una redefinición del derecho de propiedad, porque nos permite un control total sobre un activo real.
So, as we already know, Bitcoin makes property dependent only on seeds, like the knowledge of these seeds. And that means we get to see a redefinition of property rights because we have full control of this property of Bitcoin.
Si pensamos en el Estado, para tener derechos de propiedad gasta enormes cantidades de recursos. para tener policías, ejércitos, jueces. Bitcoin soluciona todo eso simplemente sin depender de terceros, ¿no? Y en ese sentido es una red global de derechos de propiedad.
So, as we know today, the state needs a lot of resources to ensure and protect our property. They need judges, we need the police, armies, and still they don't do a great job. So Bitcoin changes all of that, and by making it only dependent on knowledge without the need of third parties, it redefines property rights by making them absolute. And that is completely new and disruptive.
De ese modo, Bitcoin es mucho más que un sistema monetario, es un sistema global de derechos de propiedad.
So Bitcoin is way more than just a monetary system alternative to fiat, but it is also a global system of absolute property rights.
Si pensamos en esto, está en el origen de los propios cypherpunks. El primer texto que se publicó en la lista de criptografía fue de las ballestas a la criptografía, en la lista de los cypherpunks.
So we find this in the origins of the cypherpunks link. The first article that was published there was from Crossroads
To cryptography.
To cryptography.
Y en él Chuck Hamill comentaba cómo la ballesta permitió a los plebeyos defenderse del señor feudal, ¿no? Porque no necesitaban nada más, no necesitaban entrenamiento, era muy barata, era muy fácil de permitirles a ellos defender su propiedad, sus recursos.
So in this article, Chuck Hamill talks about how crossbows are related to or can be compared to cryptography. So if we have plebs that need to, or farmers who need to protect their produce, they can do nothing against their feudal lords because the feudal lords have horses, they have swords, and they only have farming tools. So crossbows completely change their bargaining power, because if you give that to a farmer or a pleb, they don't need a lot of experience, they don't have a high cost, they just need to use it and that's it, and they don't need any experience or training, as we said, and that completely changes how they can protect and defend their wealth or their produce.
Si la criptografía la comparaba Chamil con la ballesta, Bitcoin vendría a ser como la pólvora, porque nos permite proteger nuestra propiedad e intercambiarla con cualquier persona en cualquier parte del mundo.
So Chuck Hamill compares the crossbow to cryptography because the same way crossbows allow people who don't have a lot of bargaining power, they allow them to defend their property. Cryptography allows people to defend their secrets and their property as well. So if cryptography is like crossbows, then Bitcoin would be like gunpowder. And here's where Álvaro elaborates on the idea.
Exacto. La pólvora fue mucho más allá que las ballestas, porque las ballestas simplemente permitían defenderse, ¿no? Pero la pólvora permitió cambiar un sistema social entero, porque cuando se introducían los cañones, por ejemplo, pues derribaba las murallas de las ciudades, y eso obligó a reorganizarnos políticamente entera.
So, even though crossbows were a great change, gunpowder was even a bigger change, because whereas crossbows allowed people to defend themselves and their property, gunpowder went one step farther and allowed people to destroy city walls and forced cities to reorganize themselves, and basically societies had to rethink the way they were living, because gunpowder would tear down everything that they had been built on until that moment.
Y al igual que la pólvora acabó con aquellas ciudades amuralladas y nos obligó a formar otro tipo de sociedades, Bitcoin nos obligará también a cambiar la forma estatal en la que nos organizamos del Estado-nación, y en ese sentido es algo de alcance histórico completamente, ¿no?
So the same way gunpowder forced cities to reorganize the way they were structured by tearing their city walls down, Bitcoin will force us and our societies to reorganize ourselves, and by basically doing away with states. And we have to look for new political forms now that we have this incredible tool, and that's why it has a very it is a very important thing. Historically, it has a lot of relevance, and we have to be prepared for the changes that will come through Bitcoin.
Y al igual que con la pólvora, tú puedes decidir no adoptarlo, pero el que lo adopte primero es el que gana, ¿no? Y no puedes impedir que eso te afecte.
So the same way people hundreds of years ago could choose not to adopt or not use gunpowder, but they could not choose not to be affected by it or suffer their consequences. Today, you can choose not to adopt Bitcoin, but you cannot prevent others from using it and you suffering the consequences, because those who adopted gunpowder first were the ones who had a lot of advantages over their enemies.
Perfecto.
I'm going to have to ask a sly question. Do you think that monarchies stand a chance under a Bitcoin standard without gunpowder, without force, of course, but under a Bitcoin standard?
No lo sé. Lo que estoy seguro es que los estados se verán obligados a adoptar Bitcoin, porque si no, otros estados lo adoptarán y competirán y les ganarán.
He says, I don't know, but what he knows and he's certain of is that states will have to adopt Bitcoin, because if they don't, other countries will do it, other states will do it, and they will be competing against them, and they will be inferior to those who adopted Bitcoin earlier.
Maybe we can talk a bit more about individual property rights and what that means in this day and world. You talk about it very well in your book. Can you elaborate a little bit more about how Bitcoin changes individual property rights?
Sí, históricamente toda la propiedad que hemos tenido siempre ha estado vinculada al Estado, ¿no? A alguien que garantice esa propiedad, la efectividad de esa propiedad. Si pensamos en términos de Bitcoin, Bitcoin simplemente hace depender la propiedad del conocimiento de 12 palabras. Y eso nos permite tener una propiedad secreta que solo llevamos con nosotros y que nadie nos puede quitar.
So, as we were talking about earlier, historically we've always needed a third party, in this case the state, to guarantee our property. We need them to defend it for us. They need a lot of resources, and in most of the times they weren't that efficient by doing this. But with Bitcoin that changes, because you only need knowledge. You only need these words, these seeds, and that's everything you need, and you can take it with you everywhere you go, no matter what state you are in, no matter the regulations in this place. It's yours, and that makes it completely a total ownership. It is absolute property rights, and it can also be secret, which gives you a lot of bargaining power against the state, who has always known about everything or tried to know everything about what you have.
I liked in your book, there's this famous clip of Hayek talking about how money has become, I'm going to paraphrase it, but he basically concludes that the only way we'll be able to take the money out of the state's hand is through a sly, roundabout way. I don't know when he said this exactly.
It's an interview of 1984.
But he knew that was the only way possible.
Yes, it's amazing. Hayek is
a sly, roundabout way. And here we are today. We do have that now. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
So I love the fact that your book references it. And yeah, so well done.
Thank you so much.
So just to conclude, basically, what the philosophy of Bitcoin is about is not only about using Bitcoin individually to our own advantage, but also thinking about how Bitcoin will impact societies completely, and how those who don't even care about Bitcoin will be affected by its consequences, and how we need to think about what is after that. How do we organize ourselves after gunpowder is here and our city walls are no longer useful? So yeah, that's what we need to think about, and the philosophy of Bitcoin is a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's it. Bitcoin is incentivized for peace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miami, for the last 3 years in this amazing city. The whole world shut down, but Miami welcomed us with open arms. We want to show Bitcoin to the whole world. We are taking the conference on the road to set the stage for Bitcoin in a new city. Nashville. Bitcoin 2024 is coming to Nashville in Tennessee, a city that is known as a music and freedom city. Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville from July 25th to 27th.